In case you didn't know, the GhoulSaw event is ongoing, so let's fast travel to Nakak. Because you go to Operation, obviously, you know what you're here for, I know what you're here for. The GhoulSaw. 23,000 standing, because you are going to have to buy the blueprint for the blade, the chassis, the engine, the grip, and the actual blueprint itself, as well as the stance. Now, I've come in prematurely because I'm doing this on my way in to get the last of the standing I need to actually build this, because I wanted to point out something very important here that a lot of people are kind of overlooking quite a bit. If you go to this, nothing here says anything about, well, you're not, because you're not, and it says it's not. But we'll go to you, and there it is. That little symbol means tradable, which means that all of the parts to build this thing are tradable. Operate as operation supply even, which is weird because it takes you to this every time. It should take you to the offerings, and now you get the privilege of sitting there buying everything. Hope you don't click on the wrong thing, and there you go. All bought. Now for the longer part of this. It's actually not so bad. I mean, it does need some rare fishing resources. Those teeth are not so easy to come across because that fish is annoying. But everything in here seems like it's easy enough to get a hold of. More importantly, it's only an hour per part, and then 24 hours to put the parts together. So I think we'll just kind of cut this here, and I'll bring you back when that's done. There's nothing at all to compare this to whatsoever. It already has a reactor installed. We shall throw the stance in because, well, there is only one stance, and you will have to level that up. But no, and there you go. The combos on this are apparently really nice. More importantly is the fact that you can ride it. Rip and ride. Oh yes, this thing should be really nice. Building it, I will mention it now because I'm not really going to mention it later. It has 15% crit chance, so possibly. I'm not going to throw an Umbra format into it. It doesn't come with any polarities though, you will notice. That's where I think it may get interesting with this thing, because there's not a polarity to be seen. This thing's probably also not worth a lot of forma spent on it, because it's kind of, and I really don't want to be hypocritical about this thing. It looks good, it performs kind of okay. The heavy attack on it, the fact it does ×6 damage, is great. The damage isn't so bad. To me, the biggest problem with this thing, it's got to be the running round with it spinning. You run forward, holding E, and you just run into them, mowing them down. Apart from the fact that that doesn't work, it doesn't keep spinning. This thing is slow as well. This thing is slow to swing for a reason. You have to remember how big this thing actually is. So it's big, it's heavy, and it's slow. That was expected, hence the reason you have the different stances, the Ghoul Rush, Rip and Ride, Righteous Wraith, or Righteous Wraith, whatever, however that one's pronounced, Carving Heavy Attack. It's all really nice, really nicely done, but it is slow, and just the fact that holding melee it doesn't keep it spinning was a bit of a letdown. But to be fair, that was pretty much it. The fact that holding melee didn't keep it spinning is the only real downside I have to this thing. The rest of it, it's not that expensive to get, it's not that hard to build, even the parts to build it are fairly easily obtainable. The stance is also really easily obtainable, and all in all, I couldn't fault it for any of that. If it had a little bit more crit to it. and a little bit more status, because the fact that it only went to 91.8% status, and with True Steel and Organ Shatter in there, it was 33% crit chance with 3.6 times multiplier. Depending if I removed it or not, Sacrificial Steel is definitely the way to go with this thing if you're trying to build it, which means you're going to have to format this thing 3 or 4 times to get that in there, because instead of the 33%, it gives it 43% with that 91.8% status. That actually worked really well, but I did take Organ Shatter off. I saw a lot of crits while doing this, but I'm not willing to spend the time and the Umbra Former that would just, well, the Umbra Former would make this thing quicker to actually level up, rather than do 3 Vs so I can fit this thing in a non-polarized polarity. That is what we literally have to sacrifice for the Sacrificial Pressure Point or Sacrificial Steel. The reason you wouldn't have Sacrificial Steel in there, Pressure Point in this, is because Primed Pressure Point is better. Even with the 2 mods mixed together, it is a better mod. So all in all, this weapon, I like the fact that it was easy to get. It didn't cost a lot. There wasn't a lot of time in doing it. It's basically, I want to say 1 mission, 1 part, but it's more like 1 mission, 1 part, but you're going to have to do 6 missions to get it, even though there's 5 parts. Maybe 7. If you haven't done this before and you had no standing whatsoever, you'll have to do it 7 times to get all the standing together to buy this weapon, which is where the fact that it was kind of lackluster in the attack speed, which, as I mentioned, is explainable, and I just wanted to run around spinning it in front of me, mowing enemies down, and it just didn't continuously spin like that, meaning you're constantly trying to do combos, and well, you do that with all melee weapons. I just honestly expected something that is a giant rotating saw that you can run around spinning to last longer if you just hold melee down. If you hold melee down, you just kind of rev it up, keep revving it as you run forward, because then you can kind of turn your Warframe to side, from side to side, roll, whatever, and cut up the enemies. And for the record, those who did notice it, depending if I left, I don't want to say the build part of this, because, yeah, as I mentioned, I only put 2 Vs on this. It really needs at least 2 more to swap out True Steel for Sacrificial Steel, build this more towards crit, to increase the crit chance, to go with a status that would make this thing do a lot more damage. I'm just not willing to do that at the moment because we have Nidus, and I would rather spend my time leveling Nidus than trying to level this. Yes, I know you can do them both at the same time, but it's sadly kind of time consuming. If Nidus was leveled, I may do this a bit more, but it's not. But anyway, if you just run around with it spinning, I would have loved this thing so much more than I really kind of am. It's a lot of fun because it's a new weapon, and just cut myself off from whatever I'm ranting about now. Butcher's Revelry. Those who noticed that I never maxed that when I was talking about my build earlier, I format this thing twice before. I haven't given up on it. I'm going to do more to this in the future, build it more towards crit, get that Sacrificial Steel in there to replace True Steel so it has much more crit than it currently has, to make it much stronger, because that crit will make it stronger. I honestly expected a circular sword to be more crit based than status based, but hey, that's Warframe fate. It was 2 former before I realised that I never actually upgraded that mod. It was unranked the whole time, so I actually ended up with more points in here than I expected to have, but it did still need another 1 or 2 former, and I'm not willing to spend the time putting 4 former on this yet. May revisit this in the future, but for now I think we'll leave this off here. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.